Hey everybody, it's Brent Harvey with A-Hole Productions, and today is Thursday where we throw it back, like Back to the Future, and find out how we got to where we're at by the things that inspired and motivated us. Today, I'm going to tell you about the time that I made movies during war. That's right. Well, it was before and during the war. So when I was in the Marine Corps, I was a combat photographer, and so what we would do is I was a still photographer and we had videographers, and we go out in teams because that's before cameras had video and still together. Technology is done a lot in a short period of time. So we would go out in pairs, and what we ended up doing, we would train each other. So I would teach the video guy how to shoot stills, and the video guy would teach me how to shoot a camera. Well, there was a guy that I worked with who I consider like a Spielberg. Like, he was making movies with his dad's video camera when he was a kid. He was pretty brilliant, and he actually was the first person to really sit me down and teach me film theory and show me movies like Taxi Driver and Apocalypse Now, things like that. And we would talk about it. But when I got there, he'd already been there for a couple of years. He was shooting these little skits. So I started shooting skits with him, and I learned how to edit. I learned a little bit about camera work, not much. Like, I learned how to use the camera, but not the rules and guidelines like the 180 rule and all that other stuff. But in the Marines or in the military, you have a lot of downtime. And what we would do is we would go attach to other units. So because we weren't directly part of the unit, people kind of treat us like buddies all the way up the food chain most of the time. So we kind of got away with everything. We didn't have to follow the rules because we were always documenting, right? But what we would do is we'd be sitting in the field for a week or so, or a couple days. And so we started picking up the camera and making short films. And my most memorable was me and this guy, we were on a ship off the coast of California doing an exercise. Practice, that is. And it was a 2-week exercise. We were on the ship for a week waiting for the exercise to actually commence. So one night we came up with an idea with the guys that we were attached to shoot a kung fu movie. So we would do the whole fight scenes and dialogue and everything, but we would move our lips, and then we would go back and do a different voice over top of it, like the old kung fu movies would when they would dub them over. So I came up with this quick little script idea and said, here's how we're going to do it. When we shot the whole thing, now what we did is we got up at 3 o'clock in the morning when nobody was asleep on the ship except for the people driving the ship. And it was it was one step down from an aircraft carrier, so it was pretty big. And what had happened was, what the ship does, we have these hovercrafts, if you will, that we can drive tanks and Humvees and things on, and then they inflate on the beach and then hover across the water, and then they come into the back of the ship, and the ship has what's called a dry dock, and they lower it down and it floods it with water, and the hovercraft comes in, and then they dry dock it, so they lift the bottom of the ship back up, and now it's on flat land. So we had 3 of them in the bottom back of the ship. Well, one of them, when it was coming into the ship, a wave came and pushed it, and it hit the back of the ship and left this big V dent in it, so it wasn't operable. So that was the last one in the row of 3s. On the first 2 were the Humvees, tanks, things like that, but the last one, there was nothing on it. And at night, this light shined down, this top light, and so when you looked at it, it looked like Thunderdome, just this big spotlight, and then it dropped off. So I was like, okay, so we're gonna do this chase scene through the whole ship, and every once in a while have a fight scene, and then the bad guy gets away, and then we go down and we jump across these Humvees and everything, and we'll end up at the Thunderdome. So what we ended up doing is just that. We were running through the ship at 3 o'clock in the morning filming these fight scenes when nobody was around, and we get all the way down to the bottom, and my buddy who was filming, he's like, we want to do this cool thing like Matrix style where we jump up and land on the Humvees. So he's like, all right, get on top of the Humvees, jump down one at a time, and then run backwards. And in post, Well, I'll reverse it so it'll look like you run up and then jump and land on it. So we did that. And then we ended up getting and running across to the Thunderdome, which is a big arena where we do the final showdown. And I had stolen some ketchup from the mess hall, and we ended up fighting. And at this one point, I take the guy's face, and I go to smash it into the side of the boat, the hovercraft, where it's not damaged. And so we get a shot of me doing that a couple times, and then we go over to where it's dented from the ship. So when it hit the ship, and we smear ketchup all over it, we smear ketchup all over his face, and then I pull his face out of it so it looks like I took his face and smashed it in. And that was what we did on our downtime. Like, that's how I really started to make movies. That's how I got to practice acting and storytelling while serving my country. I got paid to do that, but it was cool because it was all learning lessons in story and film. But we had a lot of fun with it, and it was one of my favorite experiences because I'm sitting here going, the amount of money it would take for anybody else to be able to use a ship and use all these resources, and we're just using what we have around us, and it just happens to be multi-billion dollars worth of military equipment. So, that was one of many things that we did to pass the time creatively, but that was my favorite because we used the entire ship, Humvees, tanks, and everything to shoot this thing. So, and the fact that the boat was damaged, we used that as a gimmick as well. So that was one of my favorite shoots of all time, even now. So, anyways, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So what about you? Like, what's something crazy you did while learning your craft or trade? I don't know. What's your throwback for this week? Leave your comments, questions below. As always, share this with somebody if you feel like it, because we're just getting out to the global artistic community to motivate people, inspire people, to bring more art and creativity to the world and change the world, make it a better place, and all that good stuff. So, until next time, A-Hole Productions, Brent Harvey, Throwback Thursdays, go for the gold. Boom, baby.